Hi, I'm Karina and I'm a science communicator and I am also an educational VR innovator. My career path has been an interesting one, but it's very much been firmly in the world of STEM, and so I'd love to tell you guys all about it. So what is a science communicator? It's a really interesting career space to be in, and it's not something that people necessarily obviously think of as a career path. But it's a really, really amazing one, and it's a really dynamic one, so what a science communicator does can actually be quite diverse. For me, I think at the core of what I do is actually supporting and representing some other people with really amazing jobs, and that is the scientists. So I am actually currently the Science Communications Officer for the ARC Centre of Excellence in Plant Energy Biology at the University of Western Australia. And I actually represent about 200 plant scientists who've come from all over the world with amazing skill sets here to Australia to focus on plant-related studies, and specifically they look at plants at a cell and molecular level. And while they're doing their amazing research, which is all moving towards our future food security and improving crops, I sit alongside them and I run an education and outreach program that is designed to connect people with the science that our researchers do, to connect our scientists with the community and with students, and to showcase the sort of research and innovation that's happening in this space. It's a really awesome job. It's been a really interesting career path to get here for me, but I think at its core, and the reason I'm most passionate about it, is because it's all about inspiring and engaging people. So it's actually much like what I'm doing right now. It's talking to students or the community about science, although usually I'm not talking quite so much about myself and talking more about the science. So how did I get here? Well, when I was in year 11, I think, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I was studying biology at that point, and I was doing something called Punnett squares, which is genetics, and I wasn't sure what the significance of that was, but I was speaking to a career advisor who happened to visit the school, and her question to me was, well, what are you interested in designing or deciding where I want to take my career? And I told her that I really liked this genetics that I was doing in biology, and she said that I could go to university and I could study a degree called molecular genetics or molecular biology. I was like, right, cool. That was a new terminology for me, but it sounds amazing. And so I enrolled and I went to Curtin University here in Western Australia, and that's what I studied for 3 years. And it was incredible. It's all about what happens on the inside of cells at a molecular and a cellular and a genetic level in all living things. I went on from that to actually become a research scientist. So I did something called a PhD, which is about 4 years of study, and specifically I was looking at cancer genetics. So again, in this world of cell and molecular science, but I was a researcher in a lab. And while I did really love that, I actually was reflecting at that point on what it was that I most enjoyed, and realised it was actually more the talking about the science. It was talking to my peers who were studying with me, or my friends and family, or even members of the public about some of the things that I was studying, especially in the world of cancer where there are a lot of questions, and having those kind of aha moments with people where I've explained something and they've had that aha moment and understood something, and I really liked that. So I thought, what I want to do with myself is communicate science, teach science, as opposed to actually being in the lab doing science for the rest of my career. And so I went and I got a job with SciTech. So most people will know SciTech, WA Science Centre, all about public communication of science and engagement in science. And I was on the outreach team there, so I used to go out to schools all around Western Australia and I would blow things up and set my hand on fire and have a lot of fun communicating different types of science. Very, very cool, but again, reflecting on what is it that I really enjoy, and I realised that at its core, what I was most passionate about was actually communicating the sort of cell and molecular science that I'd studied. That was really the area that I was most passionate in. And so I got a job with a research centre that studies cells of plants at a cellular and molecular level. So the ARC Centre of Excellence in Plant Energy Biology, as I said, a bunch of scientists who are very much looking at science at this cell and molecular level, and I sit alongside them and communicate what it is that they do. And the ways that I do that have been really, really exciting and dynamic. So I use everything from social media to mainstream media. So if a scientist has a really cool publication that they've just put out, I will sit with them and we will write a media release so that we can showcase what they do out to the world. I will do hands-on programs with community or with students or with school groups. And I've been really, really lucky because of the place that I sit and because of the nature of our centre, I've been able to work with some really novel resources for communicating science. The things that are a little bit different, including our BioBounce, which is our inflatable bouncy castle plant cell. It's huge. We throw people in and they bounce around a plant cell, but we communicate the science over the top of that. Things like our planetarium movie. So a few years ago, we created a planetarium dome movie that we would play out at SciTech. Called it Plantarium, and it took people inside the world of our laboratories, into the world of plants, and into the world of our science. And so you might be noticing there's a bit of a common theme here with immersing people in our science. And so that presented an opportunity for us. About 5 to 6 years ago, virtual reality started to become a much more mainstream thing. And so we thought, well, can we use this medium and this technology to immerse people in our science in a digital way? So we set out and we created the virtual plant cell, and that's really been my baby, my project for the last 5-6 years. The virtual plant cell is an entire suite of educational experiences that take people inside of a plant cell. They show them what happens inside of that cell, but they also showcase the sort of research that my researchers at Plant Energy Biology do. And we've taken it out to the community. We've had some really fun times showcasing it there. But over time, we've also seen that there's an interest and a demand for this sort of thing in the education space. So I'd have teachers constantly coming up to me saying, this is amazing, is it available for schools? All my students think cells are two-dimensional because they were learning about cells from textbooks. And so we thought, yes, this can be available for schools, but how do we do this? Because there wasn't a lot of precedent for the use of virtual reality in schools at that point. And so part of my journey has been very much taking what we did in the early stages with the community and figuring out, well, how do we migrate the virtual plant cell into schools? How do we curriculum align it? How do we think about the educational outputs that we can get from it? A really cool moment for me was a study that we did a few years ago with students where we showed that after they went through the virtual plant cell, they started to model up and visualise cells as three-dimensional rather than the two-dimensional cells that they understood after they'd gone through a textbook version of cell biology. And for me, that was such a massive win because that was the moment that we realised that, yes, this is a novelty for education, but it actually has value in the classroom. Virtual reality can actually be used for education in a very new and very advancing way. So it's been a really fun journey in that sense, and I'm still looking towards the future of how we can continue to use virtual reality in an education space. You guys will probably try out the virtual plant cell later today as part of your Techtrails session all around VR and technology. But there is a bunch of other VR experiences online as well. I encourage you to check them out because there's some really cool things out there. I've had some other cool experiences around the virtual plant cell as well as part of my career, so we've won a few awards with it. A few years ago, we actually had the virtual plant cell up on the Yagan barrel screen in the centre of Perth, so it was really cool to see the virtual plant cell kind of up in lights. But I've had some other wins along the way as well, just in seeing some of the scientists that I work with and the excitement that they have when their science is being showcased or when they have an opportunity to communicate through some of the mediums that we've created about the research that they do and have a really wonderful point of connection with the community. So my career as a science communicator, scientist come science communicator come VR educational innovator expert has been a convoluted one, but every step of the way it's been very much about pursuing the things that I enjoyed, looking at what opportunities were out there, and I think asking a lot of questions about what opportunities existed and where I could go with this. So that would be my advice to you guys. Pursue what you enjoy, recognise that science, STEM, communication, technology, all of these things overlap and there's some really cool new opportunities out there and it's ever changing. Embrace that and enjoy.